I'm Mike AD, and this is the Delta League podcast. This week, week 9, we are 2 weeks away from the All-Star Weekend and the trade deadline, and the action is getting fast and furious. Now, let's move on to Monday, where we had Boston hosting Memphis and Salt Lake City. And in this one, Boston wins. Boston wins 28. Memphis 24. Salt Lake City 8. Now, this game started with an especially bad national anthem. So bad, in fact, the crowd started booing. Next time, don't use TikTok videos to choose your anthem singers. That was painful. Whatever happened there, Boston ended up with their first win in many weeks. Maybe they should be scouring the net for sources of inspiration. Now, Swarm player Moore Scudder innocently took out Revolution player Vasily Rollins, but he fell real bad and he crashed and burned badly. Now, as a result, Rollins fractured his orbital bone in this match, meaning he'll be out for 12 weeks, which really asks one important question. Who the fuck is Boston sending to the All-Star game? A first aid kit? Scudder gets a yellow card for that play, and the Revolution are upset. But they luckily kept their composure because they can't play with 12 players, let alone what some teams have to take the floor with. So, for Boston, leading the way it was Hobo Mickelson with 7 goals. For Memphis, it was Khalil Claudel and Carmelo McCall with 5 blocks each, and Shep Forsberg with 7 goals. And for Salt Lake City, it was Reggie Joagdev with 5 goals. And in the end of this one, Boston picks up the 4 points. Memphis, 2 points. Salt Lake City, nada. Now, let's move on to Toronto on Wednesday night. And they're hosting Vancouver and Atlanta. And in this one, Toronto wins it. Toronto 26, Vancouver 23, Atlanta 11. Now, not much to say about this game except for the injuries that came out of this one. And it was rookie Ash Malik who broke his ulna in a spectacular crash and burn. That's a 12-week recovery. So unfortunately, his season is over. So, for Toronto leading the way, it was Gord Maurer with 7 goals. For Vancouver, it was D.D. Christofferson with 6 goals. And Romeo Da Rosa with 6 blocks. And for Atlanta, nobody mustered jack shit. So, in the end of this one, Toronto gets the 4 points. Vancouver, 2 points. Atlanta, settling for 0. Now, let's move on to Saturday's matinee game, where Miami hosts Denver and Philadelphia. And in this one, Miami comes crashing down hard. Denver wins it. Denver 27, Philadelphia 20, Miami 12. Not very many results from this match either, except for the fact that Miami rookie Jacqueline White has a sick spouse. So she will be taking the next 2 months to be with her while he goes under treatment, meaning her season is essentially over. Big blow for Miami. Now, for Miami, nobody mustered jack shit. For Denver, it was Jude Tesla with 7 goals, and Damian Ellis with 5 blocks. And for Philadelphia, it was Ariel Vignola and Griffin Bricker with 5 goals each, and Guido Nagaran with 5 blocks. And in the end of this one, Denver picks up the 4 points, Philadelphia 2 points, Miami for the first time this year, nothing. Now, let's move on to Detroit, where the Rock are hosting Phoenix and New York. And in this one, New York wins it. New York 29, Detroit 22, Phoenix 21. Now, Detroit player Lucius Floyd showed up to practice visibly hungover. He was scratched. Now, game official Jupiter Hasselbeck also showed up drunk. So official Ken Choi had to officiate this one alone. Now, Fire Demons player Ruck Weinstein has reported that he has a stalker. It's a young woman and she's an obsessed superfan. This week, it got a little darker as she threatened to cut herself if he wouldn't be with her. Now, she'd show up at his house unannounced, wait for him at the airport, but this latest incident prompted Weinstein to call the police. Now, I don't suggest they trade Weinstein because she'd probably move to Phoenix. Now, during the second period intermission, a Phoenix fan attempted to win a car by scoring a goal on Wilt Davola. Suffice it to say, he stuffed the attempt. Now, you had to feel for the guy. Afterward, Davola had some reservations about absolutely rejecting the poor guy, that he bought the car for him and then presented it to him after the game. Our players are assholes. Word is the commissioner's son has a new favorite player, and it's Detroit Rock assistant captain Rad Marnane. I have no idea what precipitated this change, but kids are fickle. Get that kid another jersey. Now, for Detroit, leading the way, it was Isaac Parker Johnson with 10 goals, and Morgan Schur with 7 blocks. Now, for Phoenix, it was Neil Laskin and Curly Barnabani with 5 goals each, and Jackson Truman with 12 blocks. And for New York, it was Rock Weinstein, 14 goals. Now, in the end of this one, New York picks up the 4 points. Detroit, 2 points. Phoenix missing out on the points by 1 goal. Nothing. Now, let's move on to Chicago, where the Pride are hosting LA and Washington. And in this one, Chicago wins it. Chicago 37, Washington 23, Los Angeles 19. Now, this game didn't get going for 35 minutes after game time because of missing balls. Game official Willie Casillas accidentally left them in the officials' change room, but when he went back to retrieve them, the balls were incognito. Apparently, Chud, Finn Werley's dog, was wandering the hallways, has a fetish for stealing and chewing balls, so the dog stole the bag of balls and returned to the Pride dressing room, where he proceeded to chew the shit and salivate all over the game balls. Luckily, the Pride had some spare balls hanging around because those balls are totally destroyed. Now, Bobby Sheffitt once again picked up a yellow card in this game. Unfortunately for him, he's the first player to accrue 4 yellow cards in one season since the league policy change, so he's gone 1 week. But don't go so fast. He's already got a black card, which means he's gone for 3 weeks. LA can ill afford anybody else going down. Watching this team is like watching LA politicians trying to fight a forest fire. Now, a Washington game wouldn't be complete without mental patient in training Till Phillips coming out to the court area. I guess the team wanted him to promote his The Man, the Legend, 11 Inches t-shirt, because I can think of no other reason why this guy could be anywhere near the court as to cause further damage to his team. Now, this team, this game did not go well for the Power, and Chicago kind of poured on the pain, and that is putting it lightly. They then proceeded to celebrate and excessively then crotch chop Phillips. After about the second time this happened, Phillips got up, he went after Ivan Goss, starts throwing, Goss goes down, the team jumps off the bench, Phillips starts throwing people around. This guy is a freaking cancer to this team. In the end, black card for Phillips and a bench minor for the Chicago team, meaning everybody gets yellow cards. I mean, good old Ben Spooner delivering the goods. More on the results from the Phillips third black card this season later on. Now, well, in the second period, Ivan Goss saves a gentleman choking to death by running and applying the Heimlich maneuver. Well done, sir. Now, all the crazy action is this one will make people forget that LA player Clark Crepeau defied the odds and committed the most insane display of larceny ever seen in Delta League. Just a defensive play of the year candidate. He can put that trophy in his display case and retire a happy man. Now, this keeps going. Chicago team chemistry may appear to be pretty great, but Pride player Kipper Grimmett is in a public spat with his coach Rosalind Saucier over playing time. Now, to tell you the truth, the guy is one of the league leaders in blocks, and this team is stacked with talent. So I don't know what more he expects. Maybe, just maybe, if the injury bug starts taking this team apart, he may get some more playing time, but not with things as they currently are. Now, after this game, hero of the day, Ivan Goss, conducted the most outrageously, religiously stoked interview of all time. He didn't swear. At least I didn't think he was using the words Jesus Christ in that way, but when you don't really put too many restrictions on players, like getting them to sing the entirety of Amazing Grace or the entire book of Ephesians, you tend to get this unfettered chaos. And that's what makes Delta League experience so amazing. Now, in addition, a group of roving LA fans assaulted the vendor and stole his hot dog inventory again. Looks like a copy dog crime. So, for Chicago, it was Venus Pilar with 10 goals and Georgios Stokidis with 5 blocks. For LA, it was Bobby Sheffitz with 6 goals and Andy Trainer with 5 blocks. And for Washington, it was Chevy Colella with 8 goals. And in the end of this one, Chicago picks up the 4 points. Washington, 2 points. LA, nothing. Now, let's move on to Dallas, where the Lone Stars are hosting Seattle and Montreal. And yeah, Seattle is back, people. Seattle wins this one. Seattle 49, Montreal 30, Dallas 19. Now, this game was pretty uneventful except for the ass-kicking that Seattle put on. But, Dallas player John Sylvester scored a nice goal in this one, but he couldn't resist the urge to tear off his jersey in celebration. Ref opens their wallet, out comes the black card, and Dallas is down another player. Pretty goal, but losing another player? Just not worth it. Now, for Dallas, it was Bernie Tully with 5 blocks. For Seattle, it was Evan Parawal and Rob Donoff with 8 goals each. And for Montreal, it was Stefan Greiss with 6 goals. And in the end of this one, Seattle picks up the 4 points. Montreal, 2 points. Dallas, nothing. Now, let's move on to the standings. Okay, up to first place, we got Seattle, 34 points. Chicago and Detroit, 30 points each. Washington, 27 points. Denver, 26 points. Toronto, 23 points. Philadelphia, 20 points. New York, 18 points. Memphis, 17 points. And the playoff line is drawn there. Right beneath the line, it's Miami, 16 points. Montreal and Phoenix, 15 points each. Vancouver, 14 points. Boston and Los Angeles, 11 points each. Dallas, 8 points. Atlanta, 6 points. Salt Lake City, 5 points. Now, here are the goal leaders after week 9. No surprise. Rob Donoff, Seattle, 80 goals. Laurie Moss, Seattle, 66 goals. Star Palmer, Chicago, 58 goals. James Korn, Seattle, 52 goals. Stefan Greiss, Rock Weinstein, 48 goals each. Isaac Parker Johnson, Detroit, 47 goals. Cameron Baptista, 46 goals. Vlad Millet, Seattle, 44 goals. Venus Pilar, Chicago, also 44 goals. Travis Valencia, Toronto, 43 goals. And Larry McMaster, Denver, 42 goals. Now, this means that the offensive player of the week this week, Rock Weinstein, 14 bloody goals. Now, let's move on to the block leaders after week 9. Still in the lead, Cyrus Holleran, Philadelphia, 57 blocks. Vlad Millet, Seattle, 55 blocks. Kofi Dominguez, Vancouver, 43 blocks. Alan Adam, Memphis, 42 blocks. Emmett Ruan, Seattle, 41 blocks. Romeo Da Rosa, Harlequin Butcher, 37 blocks each. Jamie Ekstrom, Atlanta, 35 blocks. Jimbo Grover, Washington, 34 blocks. Rob Donoff, Seattle, 32 blocks. Reggie Joag Dev, SLC, and Angel Malloy, Washington, 31 blocks each. Meaning the defensive player of the week this week, Jackson Truman from Phoenix, 12 blocks. Now, let's move on to a new rating that we call the GXB rating, which is basically goals times blocks. Who excels at both facets of the game? No freaking surprise, Rob Donoff, Seattle, GXB 2560. Vlad Millet, Seattle, 2420. James Korn, Seattle, 1456. Laurie Moss, Seattle, 1188. Star Palmer, Chicago, 1160. Isaac Parker Johnson, Detroit, 1034. Venus Pilar, Chicago, 1012. Chip Chiozzi, Seattle, 1008. Angel Malloy in Washington, 992. Mohammed Carnesale, New York, 988. Cameron Baptista, Chicago, 966. Rhino Montalban, New York, 950. It's not an illusion that this team is so bloody dominant. Now, let's move on to the league news. And word on the Till Phillips weekly foray into stupidity is that he picked up his third black card of the season, all while being suspended from last year. The third black card of the season is a 9-game suspension, meaning even if he serves every game of this suspension, he will not play a single game this year. Now, this entire season and the resultant suspension will extend into week 5 of next year. This guy is a total cancer. I wouldn't be surprised if the league reconsiders his contract and gives him his unconditional release. Now, other news from Washington is that the team is changing their name next year. Don't panic. They're going to call themselves the DC Power. Now, that's perfectly fine because most of us call them that anyway, so zero fan outrage and zero logo changes required. Now, due to the large number of players, coaches, and officials unable to maintain sobriety, the league is going to change their policy next year regarding intoxication and playing under the influence, which will include a mandatory 2-week suspension for any player, coach, or official found to be legally intoxicated on the court. Now, currently, league coaches and officials already have this policy, but it will be extended to the players as of next year. Now as it stands, any player found to be intoxicated will be scratched and suspended for 1 week. The league will leave it to the individual clubs as to how they deal with the incident, and it will be done on a case-to-case basis. But starting next year, players found to be intoxicated will receive a 2-week suspension. On the second offense, they will receive a 4-week suspension and forced to go into rehabilitation. So, Jupiter Hasselbeck is going home for 2 weeks, and Lucius Floyd will be gone until next week. Now, based on the rash of players this season breaking their necks, the league is also looking into ways to curb players' extracurricular injuries, which seem to exceed on-court neck injuries to an infinite degree. Now, take that up with the players' union because there is no way this will ever fly. Ever. Now, the commissioner isn't done because this week he came down hard on players who can't resist the urge to drop F-bombs during their post-game interviews. He said that I'm issuing fines of $1,000 to players who drop F-bombs and use colorful language in their interviews. It just paints the league in a bad light when players can't speak candidly without coarse language. Now, people are listening. Kids are listening. If players do it again, I'll double the fines until they get the message. Starting next year, the league will be giving 1-game suspensions for players having inappropriate language in their interviews, with progressive punishments for every violation of the league's verbal morality statute. Bing! Fucking bloody hell. Wow. On to the mailbag. Matty V. Ellie in Philadelphia had a real amazing second halves last season. Which teams do you think are destined to have a second half rebound? And conversely, what teams do you think are just going to collapse? I think it would be apropos if Philly would have a catastrophic second half. I think Montreal has had a very good turnaround. They could make the playoffs, but they must do so to someone else's expense. Philly could be that team. You got Miami, who despite the fact that they haven't got a single victory, are within 1 point of the playoff line. This week they lost their second player, and that isn't good at all. That looks like a team that could return to normalcy, which in Miami language means garbage. Now, I think the Detroit team could show their true colors in the second half and fall a few places in the standings. I think they finish around 6th place. That Memphis team, despite being rated very lowly this season, has once again beaten the odds. Coaching is the only factor I can come up with. The magic elixir here will be which team chooses to do at the mid-season trade deadline. And you could drastically change the fortunes of many teams 2 weeks from now. Now, you know, where Tommy Anastos gets traded, that could spell a major turnaround for whoever acquires him. And then there's management, who may decide to pull the plug on any number of teams, drowning their chances of ever competing. Now, on to Real Piero Barone. This week I'm going for a 6-game, 18-team superfecta. I feel like opening up my own Chipotle franchise. So, it's only going to cost me my Porsche Carrera. I'm going to go hard on New York, Denver, Seattle, Philly, Boston, and Washington. I got zero confidence in Miami, the Swarm, Atlanta, Phoenix, Dallas, or Toronto. We'll talk next week when I cash in. I think it's a pretty big risk, although some of those picks I would vouch for. It's very brave of you to go against Chicago, especially how they're playing right now. And I understand you dislike the Towers, but I don't think Vancouver stands a chance in this game. Good luck, though, and we'll have a pint together in Chicago for the All-Star Weekend. You're buying now. Let's move on to the Shop Zone. Just in, Till Phillips equals Cancer t-shirt, the Travis Valencia jersey in double blue, before he heads out of town. The Stefan Grice jersey, the Mohamed Carnasale jersey in orange, and the Miami Marquette Weaver jersey. This one is a very nice gray and pink alternate. Now, let's move on to next week's games and predictions for Week 10. Now, we're going to start on Monday, where Vancouver hosts Toronto and New York. And Toronto has played a lot better lately. Unfortunately, New York has been playing a lot better as well. Even with so many players out, this team doesn't appear to be affected. Vancouver is the victim of two teams much better than they are, combined with their own mediocre play. 4 for the Demons, nothing for the Orcas. Now, let's move on to Wednesday, where Chicago hosts Denver and Miami. This game is a statement game for all 3 teams. For Chicago and Denver, it's a way of marking territory and who is going to take that coveted number 2 spot. For Miami, it's a statement of, do we really want this? Or are we going to predictably tumble down the table until there's no hope of a playoff spot? Unfortunately for Miami, Denver and Chicago are way too good. Their goal should be, don't get hurt, don't get suspended, and live to play another day. Now, let's move on to another game on Seattle. On Saturday, it's Seattle, Phoenix, and Montreal in a matinee game. And Montreal gets one more kick at Seattle, this time with the Rising as a dance partner. Now, last week Seattle returned to form, putting up almost 50 points. God help anyone when this team isn't hobbled by injuries. This game should be a score fest with 100 plus total goals, with Montreal taking the 2 points. Now, on to Philadelphia, who's hosting Detroit and Salt Lake City. I mean, this one is going to be close on the top end. Detroit has defied expectations much like Philly did last year. Philly needs to keep this game close just in case the Rock decide to self-destruct. On the bottom end, this one isn't even going to be close. People are predicting this team to score less than 10 goals a game. Now, the offseason can't come soon enough for the Swarm. Now, let's move on to Memphis, where the Pharaohs are hosting Boston and Atlanta. Imagine looking at your schedule, and in a 2-week span, you play Salt Lake City, Atlanta, and Boston twice. You must be licking your lips at the prospect of waltzing out of there with 8 points. Not so fast. Last week, Memphis came in second in a game that included Boston and Salt Lake City. This week, they've got Boston and Atlanta. Imagine their luck. Is this retribution or a bad omen? I think Memphis gets 2 points no matter what. But based on Boston's performance last week, I think they can pull off another upset and kick sand in the Pharaohs' eyes one more time. Now, let's move on to the last game of the week with LA hosting Dallas and Washington. And here's another game where the top of the scoreboard is going to be crowded and the bottom one isn't even close. Dallas is just a crumbling debacle, and LA continues to fight even though half of their team is incapacitated. For this reason, I'm taking the Power to take advantage of the situation and pick up the 4 points. That's it for this week on the Delta League podcast. Join us last week, where it's week 10. And we're heading into the All-Star Weekend and the trade deadline in 2 weeks. See ya.
This is Delta 2.